The year 2025 is coming to an end, and I feel like summing up the year, but I'm not a public person to talk about myself, so there won't be any of that. Look at what I've achieved or done, so this format will be a bit different. Today, I'm going to tell you about what happened in sim racing, how sim racing changed in 2025, and what to expect in 2026. So get comfortable, and let's get started. Naturally, I want to apologize a little to my subscribers. This year was extremely tough for me, and there was very little content. I moved 3 times, and I hope this time is the last. Everything you see behind me now, I just set up recently. A new stand, a new cockpit, a new computer. I changed everything, rethought everything, and reworked it all. And of course, I want to share all this with you. So for now, goodbye. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos. There will be a lot of interesting things there. In general, the sim racing community, especially iRacers, is kind of like a sect, because many people are reluctant to share information with their peers. Some really simple things are treated as if they are super secret. That's why this video will be divided into 2 parts. The first part will be informative, what has happened in sim racing. And the second part will be a bit more casual. From me, what I've learned, what I've achieved, a little. And maybe it will be useful for you too. Well, let's start with something global. For example, the fact that the FIA is officially integrating into sim racing. That's what all of this is called. FIA Menu Esports Championship. If I'm not mistaken, if I am, feel free to correct me in the comments. Basically, the FIA acknowledges that things like esports exist, and there are a lot of people involved. There are many who compete, and there needs to be some sort of competition there. So, in a way, this is groundwork for the future, but it's still very nice because the FIA is such a driving force for progress in the world of motorsport, and its presence in all of racing is really, really great. How will this affect 2026? After all, it's no longer just some kind of sect, but an official esports competition. You could even call it a discipline. It's still unclear what's going on with the Olympic Committee, but the FIA has direct influence on the Olympic Committee. And perhaps we'll see esports events, at least in the sim racing discipline, as part of the Olympic competitions in the near future. Maybe even at the next Olympic Games. Here's something else on a global scale that even affected our subscribers. It's the Sim Racing Expo, which took place this year in Dortmund. It had an impact because some of our subscribers had the opportunity to attend this event and were very pleased as it was packed with activities. Some manufacturers brought their prototypes there, new devices from MOZA, Fanatec, SimCube, SimLab, and so on. And so to speak, they kicked off the race for more newtons in the bases. They showcased some very powerful bases there, up to 35 plus newtons. These were prototypes, but more or less, that's still really cool because you can never have too many newtons. Well, and of course there were jokes too. The headliner of the whole event was Assetto Evo. They showed an early build there and many people were pleased with it. Right now, Assetto Evo is going through its classic phase where they've promised a whole lot, but in reality, updates are being released with monthly delays. Still, Assetto Evo is developing and is more alive than ever. So let's move on a bit to the results for 2025 in terms of apps and simulators. And by the way, about SimX, in 2026, it will also take place in North Carolina, in Charlotte. And there, I think we'll see a much more vibrant event with not only market leaders participating, and not just established simulator companies, but also newcomers, because the American market is huge, and we can expect a lot of interesting things. Well, is there anything else on a global scale? There's this thing called the PRI show, or PRI show. It takes place near Indianapolis, at the track of the same name, actually. And recently, the organizers introduced the sim racing arena, which is being integrated into this very event called PRI show. And essentially, real racers can meet with esports drivers who compete in sim racing, and maybe even collaborate there somehow. It's a really good trend that is bringing sim racing to the masses, not just for esports, not just for hardcore gamers, but for motorsport as a whole. Regarding simulators in the app, the year 2025 can be described as a year of refinement, because the peak of sim racing's development was still in 2019 to 2020, when real racers came in and showed everyone that this could be interesting, that it really is an esport. Telecommunications companies came in and showed that this could be commentated on, that it could be broadcast, and that a large audience also finds it interesting. And so everything that followed in the subsequent years, because everyone was more or less developing and updating the community as well. Assetto, for example, released 1 trillion mods, one after another, and many of them are actually very good. That's why all of this has come together now, into a clear form that can and should be developed further. And although 2025 was pretty good in terms of updates for this, graphics in iRacing, the netcode that got broken, various things like physics. Previously, there was no understanding of how to update the physics. It seemed better to update it separately for each class, like in iRacing, and that's what they did. Meanwhile, Assetto Evo is going its own way, where everything was reconverted, since they wanted to develop in a different direction, but it didn't work out, so they listened to the community. That's why 2026 will be the year when we'll see the continuation of 2025. Because in 2025, everything was being set up, and in 2026, it will become clear where it all went. I think it will be interesting there because Racing is a new graphics engine. Le Mans Ultimate has become the official simulator game of the Le Mans series. Third, Assetto Evo is actually a very decent simulator that has room to grow, which, even though it went its own way, but the path is already clear and organic. Third, Project Motorsport, which completely flopped, might still become something in the future. We will be following this whole story within the world of simulators. You absolutely shouldn't expect anything truly groundbreaking or globally impactful, just as content creators in the year 2025 shouldn't either, in their respective fields. Sit down and finally practice, drive, race, get a better understanding of what you're doing. Because I think the years 2026 to 2027, when the transition happens from 2026 to 2027, will be much more interesting than 2026 itself. As for hardware in 2025, things are looking very, very good because we've received a huge number of devices, ultra-powerful bases, active pedals, various premium products at very good prices. For example, SimWind now has a steering wheel, which however only works with SimWind bases. But it costs a very reasonable amount, and in general, this whole thing has kind of hit a dead end because the market is oversaturated with devices. There's just so much out there, and basically it's more or less the same everywhere. Reliability has basically evened out. Even MOZA's quality has reached a stable, decent level. That's why in 2026, we'll see a lot more interesting devices, for example, for simulations. I don't think this will go into any sort of DOF setups, and all sorts of other stuff. This will all go into various sim rigs, lighting, and different things that used to be unavailable to hardware manufacturers like BAS, for example. This buckets, pads, vibration motors, all of this will start to appear and come together into something more organic. Because, for example, with SimMagic, you can buy pedals and kit them out with everything, from hydraulics to bass shakers. With MOZA, you either buy the pedals or you buy the active pedal. All of this feels kind of disjointed and thrown together, so I think that in 2026, it will be much more interesting to look at all these products, and there will be a lot more releases. The nearest event for us is again in Dortmund, coming up very soon, and within this year, so I think it will be interesting. As an addition, as I promised, a little bit about me, about my 2026. This year, in terms of sim racing, hasn't been particularly eventful for me. It's been more about moving, settling into a new city, starting a new job, and stabilizing. All this stuff with the cockpit, the equipment, and figuring things out. You could say I've only been in sim racing for a year, so you can't expect much from me. But there haven't been as many results as you might think. But I've drawn a lot of conclusions. First, I tried karting, and second, I drove real cars, observed things, and more or less started to approach certain aspects of sim racing with a better understanding. I've shifted from a fun, casual driving model to one that's more strategic. I have a clear idea of what I'll be driving in the coming months, in what order, what to train, and what interests me. I can also reassure you regarding the content, because it was actually really hard to bring together all these life and sim racing stories into one. And even just releasing this video telling you about it was also very difficult. But still, otherwise it would have been awkward to just fade away, but still I did it. Last month, I tested some of my own strategies on myself. Specifically things like improving safety rating, driving, and just the numbers, in particular, safety, driving stability, training consistency, approaches to training, tracking those trainings, all of that, development, and so on. I have some proof of this in my Telegram, like how I was racking up 500 iRating in a single evening. So for me, 2025 was more about. It was also about polishing up the mistakes I made at the beginning of my journey in sim racing and during the transition. Specifically moving towards a more stable story, but one that's more interesting in terms of results, development, understanding, and analysis. And to back up my words, in the next video, I'll talk about how I choose my strategy for the coming months, what the meaning is, what the approach is, and what exactly became the foundation for these actions. If subscribers are interested, maybe I'll come up with something like a vlog about how all of this is going, how things are developing, and what results there are after a few weeks. So leave your comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. This was Provalny with you. Bye.